Good afternoon, I'm TerryTopCat. I'm with the wonderful Will Crewdson and David Ryder-Prangley from the fantastic Rachel Stamp. How are you? Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Terry. Thank you for having us.
Oh no, I'm very honoured to have you here as well. So we're going to talk about Rachel Stamp, your solo careers and your upcoming gig at the Garage this Thursday. Come and check it out. So I met you very briefly about 26, 27 years ago because I used to was like a T-boy at the big shout out to the wonderful Dave Stewart from Eurythmics. He had a publishing company called Anxious Music. So let's talk about Rachel Stamp first and then how you kind of got signed to Dave Stewart. So I believe it was, how did you guys two meet?
Well, David was originally from Wales and he moved to London.
From Wales.
And David actually, well, you should explain because you actually got the Anxious publishing deal before I even met you.
Yeah, so what happened was essentially I was in Wales and I had been in a few bands there, and I realised I had to move to London to get anything going. And I was quite lucky in that I worked with a recording engineer who's known as Paul Sandra, who plays with Spiritualize and Liz Fraser and Julian Cope and all these people. We worked on a few projects and he essentially, in return for singing on some of his music, he gave me some studio time where I managed to record some pretty decent sounding demo tapes. Because you know, back in those days it was, not everybody had, you didn't have digital recording, or digital recording was in its infancy and people didn't really have facilities to that at home. So most bands' demos didn't really sound that great, but I was quite lucky in that I got these really great sounding demos together. And the songs on that would have been like Hey Hey Michael, You're Really Fantastic, Pop Singer, which were the first two singles, Madonna Share, that was the third single, things like that. So I started sending off these cassettes to various different, I would basically get Melody Maker, look at the top 10 indie chart, see what bands in like Curve or on Anxious, or I'll send it to Anxious. I actually originally thought I was sending the demo to Anxious Records, but it was Anxious Publishing. I didn't even realise that till basically I got a call from a woman called Juliet Samoji.
I love Juliet, that's who I was working for.
Yeah, so essentially if not for her we probably wouldn't have done anything that we did possibly. So she called me up and she said, I just heard your tape, you know, yeah, it sounds good, you know, what's going on? I was like, well, it's just me, I don't really have a band. So, because on those original tapes it was me doing most stuff and then a couple of friends doing extra bits that I couldn't quite manage. So, to cut a long story short, I moved to London having an in with Anxious Publishing, as it turned out to be. And they sort of, you know, were essentially kind of managing me, so we realised we had to put a band together, and I put an advert in Melody Maker and Will called up. I put the influences Sonic Youth and Jellyfish just because I wanted to kind of blow people's minds with the description, and most people rang up just going, well, how can you sound like Sonic Youth and Jellyfish? Like, and they just, people just didn't really have that imagination. And then when I spoke to Will, I think we had the conversation that basically went, I think you said, do you like the Beatles? And I said...
No, I said, do you like Red Cross?
Well, I think the conversation sort of went, do you like the Beatles? And I went, no, I'm more like bands that are influenced by the Beatles. And you said, do you like Red Cross?
Oh, okay. Right.
And I said, yeah, and Red Cross is...
So if you just said you like the Beatles, it wouldn't happen.
Probably, yeah. But I didn't like the Beatles, so it was fine.
So it was all good. But Red Cross were kind of like the amalgamation of Sonic Youth and Jellyfish, really, weren't they? So that was kind of like the common ground. And because we were both into them, we were definitely on the same page, I think.
Yeah, so I guess I would have sent you. I mean, I don't know. I've never really talked to you about what when you heard the stuff, what you thought and what you thought of me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm still trying to work it out, actually. Yeah. I'll get back to you.
Thanks.
But talking of Jellyfish, so Jellyfish was a band that had a debut album called Belly Button, very Beatles influence, 1993, and they had a drummer who was their singer. And I don't know if you guys ever saw them play live. He would actually perform while he's standing up, drumming and singing, which was really hard. And yeah, I'm glad you like those. They were a brilliant band. Really, really
so
them.
The definition of underrated, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we were sort of into, you know, bands like that and Red Cross, and Steve McDonald from Red Cross had played on the Jellyfish album. So we were kind of like that, but not really wanting to pastiche it, because, you know, I mean, Will and I have soon realised, I think one of the things this makes sense, that we have in common is that we both like really different, and we've got quite eclectic tastes. Like we were both into Devo, or a lot of rock musicians you talk about like Uta Lemper or something, and they just no idea who that is, and we just happen to know all these people and be into a wide variety of music. And I think one of the weirdest things was we were both into Lindsay Anderson movies, so that was another thing. I think we had, I would sort of say, I just have a habit of just saying sort of lines from obscure films, and Will would always know what I was talking about, so that really worked. And then I think, what was the first thing we actually recorded together?
I think it might have been Pop Singer was the first thing, because we redid it properly. Well,
Yeah. The original had like a drum machine and stuff on it, and was
So when did Robin join the band? So originally it was you two, then you had a couple of other musicians. I can't remember their name. And then when did the band form with Robin and then Shahina? Was it before? Obviously, so you kind of formed in 1994. But when was the lineup of the four now?
Well, we kind of had a whole career with that original lineup, really, because that was when we got signed to Warner's, and we recorded the whole first album with Cliff Harris and Mike Rowe. And it was after that, like when we lost our deal with Warner's, that's when they jumped ship basically, and we needed to recruit some more sailors.
So how was that? Obviously very demoralising, or was that like a boost for you to go, okay, so we're going to find a new home that's going to really like us, and we're going to do some new songs? Or
well, it was really difficult because when you lose a record deal, essentially you can't re-record those songs for another, I think it's 5 years. So, and we were in this situation where basically the head of A&R had signed the band very quickly. We'd only done 4 gigs, and it was just me and Will in the band at that point. And it all happened I was actually looking at some stuff recently. It all happened, there was like a year where loads of stuff happened very, very quickly. And then when that guy left the label, I mean, I don't know what happened, but essentially they decided they didn't want to work with us anymore. And which was kind of crazy, because we were opening for Korn and No Doubt. We literally got offered the No Doubt UK tour, and the record company were like, we don't want to, and No Doubt were number 2 in the charts, or number 1, or whatever it was. It was crazy, and from that point of view, I just couldn't understand what was going on. And we were getting good press, starting to build our own audience. Our songs were getting better. We'd just written My Sweet Rose, which we had a really good demo of, and everyone who heard that was like, yeah, this is a really strong song. This could be like a hit. And in the middle of that, the record label, for reasons that only they know, decided not to work with us anymore. So it's kind of weird. So we're getting dropped by the record label, but we're walking on stage in front of 2,000 people in a sold-out show, going down a storm, and the label's like, we're not interested in this. I think it revealed a lot about the British music industry in the 90s. It was really faltering. It kind of collapsed not long after that, because not only did they have that attitude towards us, they had that attitude to quite a lot of bands that could have been successful, but they were throwing money around. The amount of money that they spent on us for them to just walk away, it was insane. And to this day, I mean, it really affected me mentally. I was like, I don't understand what is going on. But after that, I think essentially we just decided to keep going, because we weren't going to just suddenly collapse because this label had dropped us. But then we basically got I had known Robin. He had been in a band with a friend of mine in Wales called Rag Dolls, and I think we had some gigs lined up. We were headlining the Underworld, and then we were playing Tea in the Park in Glasgow, and Cliff the drummer trapped his finger in a car door and called me up and went, I can't do the gig and I'm going to be leaving the band anyway, so he literally couldn't do the gigs, and we were like, well, we have to do it. And I bumped into Robin somewhere and said, can you learn the set and the gigs next week? And he did, and the first gig we did with him was pretty chaotic, and then we went up to Scotland, but he could do it. And I think the good thing about, we were kind of like, what do we do now? I think there was, are we going to carry on or not? But Robin basically came in and went, well, you've got a great band and you've got an audience, what's the problem? And so I think we were kind of like, oh, okay.
And we still had our agent as well, didn't we?
Yeah, we
so
had
that's
a
really
agent.
important.
That
Yeah.
was like
The importance
a
of a
major
live
thing.
agent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were getting good gigs coming in, and then we had a few keyboard players in and out because we couldn't really find somebody, because I think it was quite hard to find someone who understood the music, who was into sort of, people would either overplay or they just couldn't play. So after a year or so, we met Shahina. She came to one of our gigs, and it turned out she played keys, and we were doing a tour. So we said, do you want to do the tour? She did the tour, and it worked out perfectly, and then it was the four of us. And I think that was the
classic lineup.
Yeah, classic lineup. Probably the strongest lineup in terms of just being cohesiveness. Because by that point, because we were doing mainly the gigs, the album we recorded for Warner's was very sort of eclectic, and we hadn't done many gigs at that point. And it was good in its own terms, but I think when we had that lineup, it was much more straight ahead, kind of rock and roll, loud, aggressive music.
Yeah. All that stuff was more like how we sounded live, really.
Yeah.
As opposed to from the other lineup.
And the second album that you recorded was with the four of you.
Yeah, Hints of Strange Children, which was, people think of as our first album, but it's actually our second album.
First album that came out, anyway.
Yeah. So.
And you write all the songs together. So what's the process? You'd all be so you're rehearsing now. The wonderful Rachel Stamp have got a gig this Thursday at the London Garage. Any support?
Yeah, we have a band called The Idle Dead, who are old friends of ours, and they used to support us when we played up north. Where was it? Where are they from?
They're from Yorkshire.
From Yorkshire.
Okay.
So they've always been great. So that's going to be fun. So get there early.
And what time are you guys on stage?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Okay.
Sharp.
So
we like to be punctual.
Yeah.
You've been rehearsing recently. So I got a question from a David John Harris, who I know from Adam.
You're say David Johansen then?
No, I wish. David John Harris.
Okay.
So he's saying it's great that you're doing all these. So you did a gig at the Underworld, which I saw, and you're playing the Garage. And you said any future plans to do some gigs around the country? Because at the moment you've done a couple of gigs and they've been in London. Obviously you've got a big fan base here, and people do travel to come and see you. And talk briefly about Denise, but any plans to do some new music, or are you having fun doing the rehearsals?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to play all that stuff, and because you forget, we played a couple of years ago in London, but even since then I always forget how much fun it is, and as soon as we start playing the first song in rehearsal, it just all comes back, and it's just, we just got really good chemistry still. So I'd love to do some new stuff. Yeah, I don't see why we shouldn't, really.
And you released this wonderful album, David, called
Black Magic
and True Love, which I went and saw you at the wonderful venue in London called the Lexington.
Yes.
And I know you were supporting another gentleman from Ginger, I think, wasn't it?
Ginger Wildheart and John.
That's right. But I saw you with the full band, and this is absolutely one of my. I'm not just saying it to you. It's such a great CD. I keep playing it.
Thank you.
I'm very fickle in the sense of sometimes I find it really hard, and then what you like to like every song on an album. But this one, I'm just playing and then repeating and playing, and the melodies are great, and really great songs. So this is David's solo album, Black Magic and True Love. Check it out.
I also have another album called Vampire Deluxe that came out.
That's right. Before that.
It came out after that. Actually,
Oh, did it come
6 months ago? Yeah.
Oh, I need to get that. Okay.
Yeah, I would have brought you one. So
okay. Maybe on Thursday.
Yeah.
And Will plays as Scant Regard as a solo guitarist with his covers and his original tunes, and also with a wonderful band. They're playing on Friday at the Hope and Anchor in Islington, which she made me do it. One of my favourite bands too. And you've released 2 full albums, loads of EPs. Big shout out to Pushing Normal with all the wonderful videos and artwork. And you're a fantastic photographer too, David. So
thank you.
saw that you photographed a wonderful artist called Laurie Black. So because of you did that amazing photo, I went and saw her perform, and she was amazing. I really enjoyed it. She had really, great stories as well as really good songs. And she's actually going to be supporting the wonderful Adamant on his upcoming tour. So how did you meet Laurie, don't mind me asking?
So Laurie, I actually was walking out of a club one night, and she was walking in. I just sort of looked and just thought, she looks cool. She had this really good kind of look and a really great sort of vibe about her. But anyway, I think a couple of weeks later we were just introduced by a mutual friend, and we just got on really well. Started doing a lot of. Initially, we were doing music together. She plays piano on my albums, and I play some guitar on her records. And then, I do photography, and I've made a couple of videos for her and photographed her. And she's just really great to work with. Just a very creative person, very enthusiastic, very easy to work with.
Great live as well. She's already done a couple of the Adamant shows, and she went down really well. Like the audience really responded well to her. So yeah.
And didn't she support you in London a couple of years ago at the Underworld?
She did.
Rachel Stamp.
And I mean, you're a very busy man, Will. So you recently came back.
I am this week.
Yeah, you came back from LA. You did a solo gig there, but I just want to say a big shout out to the wonderful Velvet Styling. So you were playing a gig in Camden, and Matt was there. He's from Portsmouth, and he's saying, "You got to check out the support band." And this kid was only like 16, didn't know his age, and then he just blew me away like, after 30 seconds. And because of you and Matt, I've seen this wonderful artist. And another thing how I love is how you guys always support younger artists. So you always get good artists who support you, or you work with other artists. Because I think, and Adam does too. Adam Ann, who always. I remember when he did the Islington Academy, that he had all different support bands every night as well.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have. I can't remember who said it, but I read somewhere it's important to have mentors that are older than you, but also mentors that are younger than you, and to be just inspired by music, because I think you have to make a choice. I think a lot of people when they get older just become really grumpy and just complain about everything they see. They're like, I've seen all this before, and it's like, well, not being funny, but all those bands that you liked in the 70s, people had seen all that before as well.
Absolutely.
There's no, even if you go back to, just for example, like people wearing makeup in rock music, goes all the way back to Little Richard, and he got it from Cab Calloway, and Cab Calloway got it from somewhere else. It's not, none of us is original, and I think that, it's really important to stay enthusiastic about music, and there's. I think it's a lot harder for younger artists these days, because I think that there's so many people who are just such great musicians these days. Like, I think when we first started the band, it was really hard to find musicians that could really even sort of play, and finding singers and so. I started singing because when I was growing up I couldn't find anyone that could sing, and my first attempts at singing by me in bands were pretty awful. It took me a while. But now you can go to a pub and see someone with a phenomenal voice, but the material is not great, because maybe people haven't had much life experience or don't have the imagination to provide good material, But it's hard, I think, to get.
I totally agree. Talking of, I like your voice, Will, because you're singing more and more on the yes, really, on the She Made Me Do It stuff. Now, I think you're also a great producer. So, for me, every time you release like an EP, and the last one was like 5 or 6 songs, it's just great videos, great songs. So, like I say, like you're saying about helping out musicians, it also keeps you young, keeps you inspired as well, helping other musicians out and collaborating. Because I think Adam hasn't really collaborated with many people, has he? But he helps other artists, but again, it depends on the artist.
Oh, you mean actually recording?
Yeah.
No, that's the point. I never thought about that, but I guess not.
But you guys obviously do, and you like doing that, and I think it's really important to.
When we first met him, he wanted to collaborate with Rachel Stamp. He was a big fan of what we were doing, and he wanted to do a video for us, and we were having meetings with him. I'm sure he's up for collaboration still. Yeah.
So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming to my messy flat. But I'm going to get you to sign some. I've got some posters for you to sign. She made me do it. Will one, and this was from my lovely friend Denise at BC. So this is when you played your gig at the Underworld, and I met Denise when she came all the way from New Jersey. You guys, we're all massive big fans. In fact, you can see Prince everywhere. We're all massive big fans of Prince. And you did a show, God knows where, it was miles away in East somewhere. It was really hard to get to. And it was brilliant. You did all these wonderful interpretations of Prince songs, and Denise came, and that's when I met her for the first time, and she religiously followed Rachel Stamp and yourself, and and she made me do it.
The Selector was her favourite band. She always used to tell me that.
Oh yeah.
So she used to come when we played in New York or New Jersey. She'd come to those. So yeah, everything I was doing, she was really enthusiastic.
Yeah. So this is for you, the wonderful Denise Agbisi, and God rest your soul. Miss you. And yeah, so I'll get you to sign that, and I'm going to send that to her daughter. So.
Oh great.
Yeah.
That's great.
But thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you, Rachel Stamp, this Thursday at the Garage, Highbury in Islington, on stage at 9 with the wonderful band.
The Idle Dead.
Of supporting, so get there early. Thank you guys, really appreciate it. And this is TerryTopCat Purrsents for ClusterView.com.